Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Watier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Watier, and I'm here, as always, with my good friend and colleague, Tommy Welling. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Doing fantastic, my friend. Excited for today's conversation. We're going to talk about a study that came out of the Journal of Nutrition in 2025, back in January, and it's similar body composition outcomes following a volumetric diet and time-restricted eating in middle-aged individuals, a 12-week randomized controlled trial. Excited to have this conversation. We're going to talk about long-term sustainability. We're going to talk about choose your own adventure, fasting versus ad libitum eating, or kind of the eat less, move more, calorie in, calorie out tracking type model. And as always, we'll apply it to a fasting lifestyle and give you our thoughts on it, and hopefully give you one or two things you can take and put into, starting today, your day-to-day fasting journey. So if you are new to the podcast, welcome in. Thanks for giving us a shot and being on our fasting lifestyle journey with us. If you want to know more about Tommy, myself, our journeys, how fasting transformed our lives, and why we do what we do week in and week out, delivering a podcast episode, and the free resources on the website, thefastingforlife.com. All the links to all of those things are in the show notes. If you want to know more about why we do this, then go ahead and give it a listen. It'll give you some insights into why we do what we do week in and week out. If you are a long-term listener to the podcast, a air quotes OG of the Fasting for Life podcast and Fasting for Life journey, thank you so much for continuing to listen in and being here with us this week as well. So Tommy, let's get into the meat of this conversation. What the heck is a volumetric diet, and why does it matter?
Yeah, that's what I said, because I've heard the term.
Said?
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't know who said it, but I've definitely heard some people say I'm a volume eater before, and so intuitively, what that means to me is you're kind of you want more chewing, more on your plate. You want the experience to last longer rather than necessarily going for the calorically dense, or maybe like you're almost valuing chewing and feeling of fullness over maybe necessarily like taste per bite and calorie per bite. So I don't really resonate with that, but I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And so that can get really interesting as far as what kind of food choices do you find yourself gravitating towards? And then what about, how does that work out when you're using calories in, calories out, or with your fasting lifestyle, whether you're on maintenance or you're in a fat loss phase? Things can get a little they could get a little tricky, or that lends itself to things that we might pull the lever in a different way, depending on if you resonate as a volume eater or not, right?
Yeah, and we're talking about long-term sustainability. That's our goal. Begin with the end in mind, right? So when we're talking about fasting. Fasting is the simple part. Once you do it a few times, it's typically we find variation and sticking points in the food choices, the eating window, the nutrition opportunity, as we like to call it, right?
Yeah, or how long it stays open for.
Yeah, and putting clean lines around the fasting. So you can absolutely, in concept, fasting is simple. It's not easy in application, especially when you start to take into account lifestyle and social and friends and family and weekends and vacations, etc., which we talk at length on pretty much every episode in some form or fashion, is that sustainability piece. So you can, at some points, a lot of us come to fasting initially for weight loss, then we see the additional benefits that can come from it, right? That's how I stumbled upon it, standing in your kitchen on Father's Day in June of 2019, and then read the obesity code cover to cover that night. And then the fasting journey began, right? So we come to fasting typically for weight loss. But when we're looking at the big picture, you can underfast and overconsume during a nutrition opportunity, and we'll talk about the different food choices. And then you can overfast and underconsume, where you're not getting enough nutrition in, right? Now, if you have a considerable amount of weight to lose, we'll argue that let's get some of that weight off, and then we'll start worrying about some of those smaller details. Let's get some consistency and some wins under the belt and start getting feeling better and energy up, etc. So we're going to talk about today, this is something we talk about during our challenges as well, over the weekend on the Sunday session, where we talk about how counting calories hijack hormones and emotional eating. You can add in macros as well, as undermining your long-term results. And we talk about something called the hedonic food scale. Now, we're not going to get into the whole point system of rating foods that you like from 1 to 9, but we want to talk about big picture of those nutrition choices, Tommy, that you were talking about when your nutrition window opens. And the volumetric diet, as well as TRE, can free you from that calorie tracking, macro counting, calorie counting, macro tracking mentality or system that has typically failed us if you were like us and so many others that have been on the diet roller coaster, the on-off diet mentality, right? So when we're talking about low and high hedonic foods, I just want to give you kind of the big picture of what that looks like, and then we can then compartmentalize what the volumetric diet was, which is more an intuitive eating type strategy, but it really focused on those lower hedonic foods. So you're getting more volume, more fiber, and less caloric density. So higher hedonic foods are all the fun stuff: the chocolate, the cakes, the cookies, the pastries, the ice cream, the French fries, potato chips, salty snacks. That used to be a big thing for me post-dinner. Popcorn and chips, pizza, cheeseburgers, sugary soft drinks, cheese even, peanut butter, dare I say. The caloric density of nut butters, very high, right? Fried chicken, donuts, barbecue ribs, rich meat dishes, et cetera, et cetera. The low hedonic foods are going to be more of the high fiber, so veggies, raw veggies, low-calorie dips, oatmeal, soups, whole grain crackers, melons, high water content fruits like the melon family, canned or cooked veggies, salads, those types of things are going to fall more into the lower hedonic foods. Now, if you've been fasting for a while and you break your fast, you're doing a longer fast, or you're starting to do OMAD consistently or extending your fasting windows, we typically, if you're ravenous, which we don't recommend, going towards those higher hedonic foods, you break your fast, you eat, you feel incredibly full, and then you crash.
Yes.
And the thought of eating a salad or a lower hedonic food from a mental standpoint after doing a long fast, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
This sucks. I got to do both of these? I got to eat like a rabbit? And no, so we do not subscribe to that line of thinking. That's the diet mentality. We want the lifestyle adaptation. So we want a good, healthy balance of getting in quality nutrition when you're breaking the fasting windows. So, go ahead, Tommy.
Well, one thing about the hedonic food scale that I think is interesting is because most of the images that I've seen for the hedonic food scale don't include some really good whole food choices, one of which would just be just a plain old steak that would be a high caloric density and actually makes its way up the hedonic food scale if you're a fan of said steak, or as you get better, or
the fattier, more dense meats is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and as you get better at cooking it, or as you find a style of cooking it that you enjoy, and then you're able to prepare it. It's a good source of lots and lots of micro and macronutrients. So it's nutritionally dense, it's calorically dense, but also at the same time you're getting a very good satiation factor from this one food as well. So it makes its way up the hedonic food scale because there is a lot of food pleasure for many of us within a steak or other whole food items that are calorically dense. So then you can kind of get the best of both worlds in that regard, which is where I feel like just understanding that one piece can kind of help you make more sense of some of the hedonic food scale and making food choices that really kind of fit within your long-term goals, but then also leverage the food pleasure, and then also the caloric density and satiety signals too.
And so the big picture of the study is it's going to compare like to eat normally, live normally, not super restrictive, paint yourself in a corner type diet or weight loss strategies. We don't like the word diet in active adults. So no food group exclusions, no calorie counting, that kind of freeing nature of it, right?
Yeah.
and finding that balance that we want. So before we go into the two different groups in the study, I want to just talk about big picture what the volumetric diet is. So it's a strategy focused on reducing the energy density of foods. So stuff we were just talking about with the hedonic food scale, the high versus low. So fewer calories per gram, but still allow you to consume larger portions. So I'm a volume eater, right? You're not talking about the competitive eating tour, right? Eating 10 pounds of pasta in 8 minutes or 87 million hot dogs in 10 minutes.
Dunking the hot dogs.
Yeah. Not that, but it's still going to allow you to consume as your identity shifts and you change your lifestyle over time and your new habits and the new you emerges over time when it comes to losing weight and keeping the weight off. Ultimately, these types of lower hedonic foods, these lower energy density foods, are going to still give you the satisfaction of eating well, whole food source-based foods. So the primary goal of this is to help people feel full and satisfied while naturally decreasing your intake, your caloric intake, right? Without the feeling of feeling deprived. This is exactly what I would say fasting has done for us and so many of our listeners and VIP coaching clients and challengers, et cetera. So the key principles of a volumetric diet is low energy dense foods, so lower hedonic foods, fruits, veggies, lean proteins, soups, the watery veggies, the raw veggies, those types of things. There's really no food group exclusions, right? It's kind of an intuitive eating thing, which can be dangerous if you have a really imbalanced relationship with food. Larger volume, fewer calories, increasing satisfaction and satiety, and there's really no concern about the portion calorie counting concept. So that was one of the control groups in this study. To break down the study, just to kind of give you the overview, why this matters and why we wanted to talk about it is because we know the rising concern with obesity. The rising global rates, not just here in the U.S., 74% of the country here in the United States is overweight or obese. We're now seeing it. We just did a podcast episode recently about the staggering statistics in kids, and not just adolescents, but young kids now as well, because we know it's linked to cardiovascular risk, diabetes, mental health issues, and decreased quality of life and increased healthcare costs with lifestyle-induced chronic health conditions that we see here in the States and now globally. So obviously, the food environment that we live in, the obesogenic, ultra-processed, highly processed, refined, convenient, food noise-filled world that we live in is part of the problem, right? There's sugar hidden in everything. I'm not saying sugar is the worst thing, but it's everywhere, right?
Right.
So the study is really going to look at this eat normally, live normally type concept, and which is better, more of the volumetric concept or more of the fasting? We're obviously going to say fasting, and the study backs that up as well. So 37 physically active adults, 30 to 65 years of age, at the edge of normal/overweight, and they're moderately active. So like 1 to 3 sessions of activity, moderate activity a week. There were 21 in the volume diet and 16 in the time-restricted eating. So the whole idea in the volume diet was eat meals with less energy density, so lower hedonic, right? Focus on foods that are filling but less dense. And then the TRE could eat anything, any amount, but only within 11:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. So your classic 16-8 window, right?
Yeah.
12 weeks, track food intake, supervised by nutrition coach, and measure progress at 0, 4, 8, and 12 weeks.
Okay.
So they measured body weight, fat mass, absolute and relative lean body mass, BMI, waist and hip circumference, and waist to height ratio. So these are some of the things that we love to focus on rather than the number on the scale. And we've done dozens of episodes on all of these different things. The anthropometrics, the waist circumference and waist to hip ratio, indicating underlying blood sugar insulin issues that lead to all of the obesity-related chronic lifestyle, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, et cetera, stuff that I just mentioned.
Yeah, that waist to hip ratio and waist to height ratio, they're very indicative of what's going on under the surface within visceral fat layers. And those are tough to get to unless you're doing something like a DEXA scan on a fairly, every occasionally.
And that's not something your yearly health checkup or your company's health care program
Right.
or your doctor's going to recommend.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, but to understand that you can get a good proxy measurement for that within
Yes.
you'll basically be measuring that with about 70, like a 70% correlation to what's really physically going on under the surface, just by doing these simple ratios is really, really powerful, because you can keep track of what's really moving the needle and what's really indicative of long-term health outcomes very simply, without having access to expensive machinery and things like that. We're near Houston, so the medical center is crazy and it's amazing. We have access to certain things, but there's not DEXA scans just everywhere. We've looked at the map, so
Yeah,
we've
and they're
helped
around
people
here. They're
find them.
70 or 80 bucks. They're just not
Sure,
readily available or known, right?
but
So
yeah,
these metrics that this study looks at that we constantly talk about, not just the scale, but clothing size, body composition change, pant size is going down while the scale stays the same, non-scale victories, waist height ratio, waist circumference, all of those are things that you can track and measure at home,
yeah,
right?
and should.
And that gives you tools in your tool belt to then know you're on the right track, especially
Yeah,
when you hit the, let's say, dreaded plateau or your life falls apart and you're going to get back on track, right? That
yep,
old diet mentality, the on-off mentality. So a couple of cool things that happen. I really want to talk about the adherence and the sustainability piece, so we'll get
okay,
there. But overall, what happened? Well,
mhm,
both groups saw significant improvements. Body weight dropped, fat mass dropped, BMI improved, waist to hip and waist to height ratio all better. Lean body
excellent,
mass was maintained.
great,
So there were no big statistically significant differences between the volumetric group and the TRE group, right?
that's
Now,
great.
when it comes to diet and physical activity, what did they do? So calories, protein, carbs, fat, almost identical averages between the groups.
Mm,
There was a slight calorie deficit in the volumetric diet group of about 184 calories per day, kilocalories per day. And the TRE group, which was the group that could eat ad libitum, meaning as much as they wanted during an 8-hour window, saw a decrease of about 113, right? So about a 65, if my math's correct, I don't do math well in real time, 60 to 70 calorie difference between the two groups.
mhm.
Here's where I love to see where TRE, aka fasting lifestyle, wins in the adherence. So the TRE adherence was 5.8 days per week,
Oh wow, that's good.
right? So we talk about the 80% rule. So what's 80% of a week? 6 days.
Yeah, it's actually about 5.7 days.
Oh,
They
see,
were,
there you go.
yeah, right. They were on track 83% of the time. That's great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you do some more math here. We should have done this
Okay.
before we hopped on. Anyway, in the volumetric adherence, it was 5.3.
Yep.
So just a 0.5 difference, half a day difference.
Yeah, that's about 76%. So yeah, they're almost there.
So
But
close.
yeah, but that's 7% difference. I mean, that matters. 7-8%. That it matters. It adds up over time, which is really, really cool.
So extrapolate that over a year,
Hmm.
right? Now we're talking about a big gap in the total completed adherence of your lifestyle.
Yeah, and a gap between those end results too.
Absolutely. So TRE, fasting, this is what we preach and practice, right? Why does it work? Why is it easier? We truly believe that fasting simplifies your lifestyle due to simpler rules and fewer food restrictions.
And less food noise and less
Yeah.
decision fatigue as well. And those things are not to be understated, because when you extrapolate out over hours and then days and into weeks, food noise and decision fatigue, it really does add up. When you're in one of those highly motivated states to like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get on to the diet roller coaster, like, hey, I'm gonna hit it hard now, I'm gonna get going. It feels like you're kind of invincible during those times, but really the simplicity or lack thereof and the decision fatigue and food noise, they add up over the days and then the weeks and then into the months, especially if the results aren't matching. So
Yep.
it's really cool to know that beforehand you're kind of setting yourself up for success if you're minimizing those things. And then to think about the sustainability, the lifestyle component, when you do reach that maintenance phase, it's so much easier to then continue, because you're going to need to continue to maintain some level of vigilance if you're going to want to keep that weight off too. If you just let everything, if you just go, well, I'll just do whatever when I reach the finish line, it
Right.
will inevitably, you'll inevitably slip back into a lot of those old habits, which that's the last thing that we want when we set out on a fat loss phase, right?
So it's interesting too when to build on that is, the adherence difference was there.
Hmm.
We want to talk about the sustainability of it. So at the end, they mentioned like choose your own adventure, which you can do volumetric or you could do the TRE. Well, I'm going to posture. Why can't you do both?
Mm,
Right? Because in
good question.
TRE, the adherence, in our opinion, is due to the simplicity and also the ability to not always have to restrict and fear of missing out and never able to eat the cheeseburger or the pizza,
Mm,
or for us to have the movie nights with the kids, right?
yeah.
Or the date nights with the wife. Like if that's not part of my current plan or strategy, then that's not part of my long-term plan because those things are non-negotiables for us, right?
Hmm.
So when you're looking at this, this the study was not perfect. It did have some limitations. I want to highlight protein in just a second, Tommy. It
Okay.
was a small group, mostly female. It wasn't very long term, self-reported tracking. So obviously it's not a randomized controlled systematic meta-analysis review, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
And it did not compare men to women. However, big picture, it really spoke to what we talk a lot about, which is that sustainability piece, right? Practice over perfection, progress over perfection.
Hmm.
So in our case, when you are finding yourself more cravey and more going after the window is closed for those salty, savory post dinner snacks, if you can make a better, lower hedonic, more volume filled food decision when you break your fasting window,
Hmm.
rather than going to what I did in the beginning, which is trying to fit all the things that I used to eat on a day to day basis into one small window after a one meal a day or an OMAD,
Right. Right.
that didn't work out very well. So if
Hmm.
you can start to incorporate a few of these decisions in your nutrition opportunities with this hedonic volumetric kind of concept in mind, I think it's really going to be the best of both worlds.
I couldn't agree more. You can use a volumetric diet approach as a fast breaker. So some
Yeah,
of our favorite fast breakers fall into the volumetric eating approach. Some of those,
list them.
yeah, like water-based soup. So a bone broth
Bone
fits
broth. Yep.
nicely into that
Great way
category.
to break a longer fast.
Oh,
Absolutely. Great way to
absolutely.
break any fast. But
Yeah, crunchy raw veggies, or they could be cooked veggies too. You can like put a spray of avocado oil on them. That's going to limit the caloric density, but it's going to add to the flavor and the mouthfeel of it. And
yep.
then give a good landing platform for some salt and pepper as well, which is going to enhance the hydration effect, and it's also going to enhance the palatability and just the overall enjoyment of it too. So that's great for a fast breaker. Anything also like watery fruits fall into that category as well.
Yep.
Berries, melons, things like that. You can
Veggies with
put.
salsa, even. You could use salsa.
Yes, that's great. I love salsa. Salsa and mustard are like superpowers. Those are
I'm
your
the only
condiment
mustard fan in
superpowers.
my family.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, no one
Okay.
else, just
But
me.
we're like 50-50. We're like split in my household. But mustard and salsa are like our superpowers for condiments because they kick in some good, really good flavor, and calories are minimal. Yeah, if not very, very close to zero. So use those, but then you can also take all of those things that fit on that side and put them in at the end before you close your window. If you're having trouble closing your window, you can take any one of those things, and instead of like if you take a simple OMAD example, which if you're doing OMAD dinner, it can get tricky. Going like, okay, well I ate at 6, now it's 6:45, feeling good. Okay, great. What happens at 7:45 though? Because that's what could be making or breaking a lot of your results. That can be really tricky. It was tricky for me. I know it's been tricky for you,
Yep.
based on like growing up habits. What did
Yep.
you see? What do you model? And where did some of your insulin resistance come from? It can be those late night snacks. Guess what? Take some of those fast breakers, some of those volumetric foods, and put them there. Because if you went from instead of 7:45 going for a handful of nuts or some peanut butter from the pantry, or insert XYZ, anything here, chips from the pantry or anything else, if you went to something volumetric, it would be a much better choice. The caloric load would be it would be close to zero, if not very, very low, much lower than those calorically dense foods that sit in the pantry. So you might cut down on the calories by 80 or 90%. You're
Yep.
going to definitely cut down on the glycemic load and the insulin load by probably at least the same 80 to 90%. So is it perfect? No. Was it exactly to the plan? No. But it will be an easier stepping stone to do that as like a half measure to control what happens at 7:45 or 8:45 at night if you have a really strong habit of late night snacking. and then it's going to be much easier to go from there to a cleaner fast and bring that earlier, put it into your meal, put it on your plate, enjoy that with dinner, and it will be much easier to compartmentalize and actually close that window for a good long-term habit and build upon that than it would be from going from a late night snack right now with calorically dense food to go, you know what? No, today's the day. I'm never going to do it again. And then, man, look at me. I'm doing it again, right? It would be much better, more sustainable that way.
Yeah, so you can absolutely use this volumetric, lower hedonic, more volume, more filling, more satiating food to break your windows. Absolutely. Especially to your point, Tommy, if you're struggling with that, closing the window, or wait, I just finished my window, but now I'm still hungry. Or
what happened? Snacksident.
Yeah, snacksident, right? We call it slippage, right? So you find yourself in the pantry, like, wait, how did I end up in here? Like, what's going on?
What day is it?
Yeah, so we always want to begin with the end in mind and create that sustainable piece for you. So you got to play with the levers, try some things out, apply some of the things you heard. One thing they did mention here is that the lean body mass stayed the same, right? Even though all the other metrics went down, the waist to height ratio, the waist circumference, the body fat, the fat-free mass, etc., BMI, right? But they did mention protein. And both groups either met or slightly went over the RDA recommended amount, which is, in our opinion, is low. So this strategy does protect your lean muscle tissue, and you can absolutely, to our episode previous of this one, still be able to maintain and or increase lean muscle mass with a fasting lifestyle. How you're going to do that is you're just going to make sure that you're doubling down on your protein during your eating opportunities. That's also, combined with fasting or time-restricted eating, going to help balance your hunger cues and your satiety levels due to the leptin and ghrelin balance, which are your two main players in your hunger hormones. So making one better decision when you open your window using the volumetric approach, lower hedonic food, doubling down on your protein, then makes the next day that much easier.
Yeah.
Your fast is going to be cleaner. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have less hunger, right? If you're new to fasting, you're like, I don't believe it. Well, I'm telling you, we hear it. It's coming. It's anecdotal. We've experienced it. We've actually done studies on hunger with fasting and how even though the ghrelin level in the stomach goes up, which is the growling effect, the mechanical hunger cue, the perceived hunger does not.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. So you can absolutely have the best of both worlds. So we always prioritize protein, and most importantly, prioritize protein. And obviously we want that progress comes from persistence, that repeatability, not from that perfection that we're striving for when you happen to step on the scale and it doesn't match the expectation because of all the hard work you've been doing.
Yeah,
right?
And part of prioritizing protein is, like I was talking about earlier, with a hedonic food scale, finding those things that are calorically dense, but they're also satiating. So
that you enjoy.
Yes, that you enjoy. So, find a cut of meat or another dense protein source. If you're not a meat eater, then, have your go-to dense protein sources that you enjoy and make them interesting. Find, experiment with some new ways to prepare them so that you can leverage not just looking for just the straight volume, but going up the hedonic food scale, which means you're enjoying your physically and neurologically enjoying the food more, but you're also getting a good caloric density from it, but you're also getting very, very balanced and faster satiety cues that come from the food, because lettuce doesn't give you very good satiety cues. It gives you volume cues, as you kind of pile it into your stomach, but those are still a little slower than the biochemical satiation cues that come from good fat and good protein sources from whole food sources. So that's a trick that you can use as you're pulling that lever to kind of design your food choices with your fasting goals too.
Yep, absolutely. So Tom, as you wrap up today, if you're looking for more support, you want to find some of our free resources, thefastingforlife.com. You can head to the show notes, click a link, grab the blueprint to fasting for fat loss, join the Facebook community, join one of the upcoming challenges that we have.
Yeah.
We would love to have you with us. But just to kind of summarize the conversation today, so embracing a fasting or time-restricted eating lifestyle will empower you to lose weight, improve your body composition, protect your lean muscle, all without the necessity of counting calories, tracking macros, extreme restrictions, by simply giving your body a daily nutrition opportunity to rest and reset, making sustainable change possible with the long-term results or the long-term goal in mind. So Tommy,
heck yeah.
As always, appreciate the conversation, man, and we will talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
So, you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.